Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our online talk, which will be starting shortly at 3 p.m. So for those of you who are here early, thank you so much for waiting patiently. And while you're waiting, we would like to share with you a short video from the firm.
I founded the firm in September 1985 with the vision of seeking truth and justice for our clients and not just winning their cases. Over the years, the team has achieved many significant milestones. We are today recognized by the Legal 500, Asia Law Profiles, and Asian Legal Business as a recommended firm in various practice areas. While we have embraced technology to make our services efficient and responsive, we continue to grow on the bedrock of meticulous preparation and hard work, for which there is really no substitute. As legal practice becomes increasingly international, we keep ourselves ahead of the curve with our relationships with lawyers from around the world. Our firm is a founding member of the League of Lawyers, a growing international network of law firms in 20 Asian and European countries.
We believe in partnering with our clients to protect and grow their business. We achieve this by holding firm to our values of integrity and justice, while giving our best to deliver effective and efficient solutions. Instead of just legal services, we focus on developing great working relationships based on understanding and respect.
We regularly advise foreign clients, including many Chinese investors, and have a ready appreciation for different ways of doing business. In corporate matters, we offer relevant and commercial solutions, often raising issues that clients may or may not have realized before. In negotiations, we believe in facilitating win-win outcomes.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's online talk, which is titled Legal Challenges in the Digital Gaming and Esports Industry. My name is Jasmine Wee, and I'm an associate with Malacca & Associates, and I will be your moderator for today's session. So before we start today's talk, let me just introduce to you the firm and what we do. We are a small medium enterprise, and it was founded in 1985 by Dato' Malacca. Our able team today now comprises of 30 lawyers and with a support team of 23. And Dato' Ma today is a consultant of the firm following his retirement from the Court of Appeal bench in 2015. So these are the services that we provide, and we are a full service law firm and our practice groups. So our speaker today will be Miss Lesley Lim. And let me just introduce Lesley to you. She is a partner with the firm, and she heads the sports, media, and entertainment, and technology and esports team as well. So over and above her practice and experience in general civil litigation matters, as well as drafting of corporate and commercial agreements, Lesley regularly provides advisory and consultancy to the esports and gaming community. She was nominated for Woman of the Year in the law firm category at the 2020 and 2022 Asian Legal Business Malaysia Law Awards. She's also a key team member of the Sports Law Practice Group at MWKA, which won Sports Law Firm of the Year Award in 2018 and 2019 at also the ALB Malaysia Law Awards. She is also captain of the first national women's dragon boat team to the 2018 Asian Games and the 2019 SEA Games. I will just let you know that we will be having a Q&A session at the end of the talk. So please post your questions in the Q&A chat box at the bottom of the screen, and we will address them after the talk. Now I pass it on to Lesley to begin her talk.
Thank you, Jasmine, for the kind introduction. A very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time this Friday afternoon to spend time with us as we share more about the gaming and esports industry. To start off, I'll just say that when we use the word gaming here, we are not referring to gaming in the betting sense, but really we are referring to gaming in the sense of video games or digital games, and the subset of that, which is esports. So on the screen here, you'll see the 4 main points that I'll be covering today. Firstly, the power of the digital playground. We'll jump into how we can protect digital assets through intellectual property and licensing. And then we'll have a look at the esports regulation and governance structure, both internationally as well as locally. And lastly, we'll just wrap up in terms of the player contracts and rights. I'll start off with the very fundamental question of what is esports? Now, like a typical lawyer, I want to go into spelling first. As you can see here, esports is spelled just esports. And all these examples that you see here with the capital in the middle, with the hyphen or capital at the start, all of these are the incorrect spelling of esports. Okay. In fact, there should be no hyphen, no dash, no capitalization unless esports is used at the beginning of a sentence. So the reason why I felt it was necessary to share about this is because if you speak to someone in the esports industry, or if you write to them and you spell it wrongly, there's a possibility they might get a little irked about it. So something to share to start us off. And now going to the fundamental question of what is esports can be played on a variety of platforms. The first one we see there is a PC or a computer base. The second one is on console. This can be PlayStation, Xbox. And the last one is mobile gaming, where we often see a lot of people sitting in a mama store playing in a circle of table together. This is in fact what they're doing on their mobile phones together nowadays. Now, in order to fall within the definition of esports, these are the three criteria that must be fulfilled. There must be video gaming, it must be competitive in nature, and it must be multiplayer. So only when we check these three boxes does it fall within the definition of esports. So here we have already defined esports, but esports in reality, because it needs to check those 3 points, is really a subset of a much bigger industry that we can chat about today as well, which is the gaming industry. So for example, people like me and Jasmine, when we sit in our house and we play Hogwarts Legacy or I play Mobile Legends on my phone, we are just regular gamers. We may not be esports players, esports athletes, because we're not doing it competitively in a bigger setting, so to speak. Now, there are various genres and games that are involved in both gaming and esports, and they're generally broken down into these 4. So there's tactical shooters, games like Counter-Strike. There's mobile games, the famous Mobile Legends, PUBG. There's sports simulations like FIFA, Player Evolution Soccer, NBA, or fighting games like Mortal Kombat. So these are the 4 genres that we generally see when it comes to gaming. Now, the main objective of today's session is not only to share about the challenges in the gaming and esports industry, but also the opportunities that are available in there, which are massive. And I'll start off with the biggest one of all in today's news, which is last year, Microsoft announced that they were going to acquire this major publishing company called Activision Blizzard for a whopping $68.7 million US dollars. And this is not only the biggest acquisition or the biggest deal in the gaming industry, but in fact, the biggest deal in the tech industry as a whole. And imagine the tech industry is so wide, and yet the biggest acquisition is happening in the gaming sector, where Microsoft intending to establish themselves more in that industry. And why this is huge is because Activision Blizzard has a list of subsidiary companies under their belt. One of the most famous games you see there right in the middle is Call of Duty. That's under Activision. And so when Microsoft acquires, Microsoft now owns the right over Call of Duty as well. On top of that, on the far right on the top, there's this word King there. King is one of Activision Blizzard's subsidiary companies, which owns the very famous Candy Crush. And now Microsoft is going to have that under their belt as well, potentially signaling how serious they are viewing mobile gaming. Here's just a snapshot from Forbes on the 10 most valuable esports companies. Most of them predominantly are based in the United States. I know the numbers over there are a little blurred, but it starts off at 540 million right at the top, all the way down to 220 million for the top 10 esports company. Now, in order to demonstrate the magnitude or the opportunities that are available in the esports and gaming industry, here are some stats from the 2022 global market. So here you see the breakdown between console games on the far left, that's 27%, 52 billion. Then you've got browser and PC games combined, that comes up to just about 40 billion. But there you see on the dark blue and the bottom, really taking up the mass of it, 53% is in fact mobile games. That shows the rise of mobile games just in 2022. And here we are in the middle of 2023 already. And if we look at the breakdown in terms of the segment across globally, Asia Pacific on the far right takes up 49% of the market share, as compared to North America, half of that, 26%. And in terms of just general global revenue growth, there we see definitely an upward trend from 2020, 2021, 2022 last year, 1,300 million, and looking to rise by 2025 by 13.4% to 1,800 million. Now, if we look at the global players aspect, again, the bulk of it seems to be coming from here, Asia Pacific, 55%, with Middle and East Africa taking up the next segment of 15%, and then Europe, North America, and Latin America. So here seems to be where the bulk of the growth and a lot of the revenue is, the potential lies here. But here, previously, we were talking about revenue growth, we're talking about players. Let's not forget that a bulk of the revenue in the gaming and esports industry comes from viewership, from audience, because that's where the sponsors want to be. And a lot of that happens on Twitch, which is this streaming platform where gamers will go there, play games, and stream themselves playing games live. And people are watching. And if we look at the breakdown of occasional viewers and esports enthusiasts, we look at the far right, in fact, the occasional viewers outnumber the esports enthusiasts, and look at the numbers again in the millions and still on a constant upward trend. So much so that so many eyeballs are on Twitch that even our regular sports brand, which we say we use for traditional sports, Nike, Adidas, I'm sure all of you are familiar with these brands, are now wanting to sponsor and get in that piece of the pie on Twitch as well. They want their brands to appear there. They want eyeballs on their brand. They want to connect with gamers over there as well. And if we look here in Malaysia, we are in fact the third largest in Southeast Asia. And this is last year's stats, estimated value of 786 million. Again, if we see mobile, console and PC, mobile is just way up there leading the race at the moment. So mobile gaming is so huge in Malaysia that Mobile Legends has plans to in fact launch an esports hub in Malacca. It's going to be the world's first Mobile Legends integrated esports hub. And on top of that, they even want to set up a hotel. This is down in Malacca, Raya. These are the plans to revamp the hotel fully into a gaming sort of hotel. There are rooms to play games. People can gather. They're probably going to have events and tournaments downstairs as well. Now, although we've spoken about the gaming sector, the number of players, the breakdown, global, region, we've even spoken about streaming on Twitch. But let's not forget a subcategory, which is the gaming accessories. And this screen just shows a portion. I think most of us, even in the office, we probably have half of this thanks to the pandemic. We've got fans, we've got lights. Half of people I know are sitting in the gaming chairs now in their offices as well. Earphones are also very common nowadays. And according to reports, the market just for gaming accessories is anticipated to increase from 6 million to 14 million just across from 2021 to 2030. And if we need one evidence of that, is the fact that IKEA has come up with a gaming range. I'm sure many of us have walked through IKEA's showrooms, and we know that there's this one segment that they've come up with of late, which looks just like the screen. Gaming sector, lots of gaming accessories you can buy. They've even come up with their own gaming chair as well. So that's the first point. Now we'll jump into the second point with all these potential, all these opportunities. What can we do about it? Or how does it work in terms of the legal sense of things? And this will be broken down into two. The first one is intellectual property. I'll jump into this first. So both locally in Malaysia, as well as globally, there are 6 ways where intellectual property can come in to protect digital assets, basically. Trademark, copyright, patent, industrial designs, trade secrets, and geographical indications. And for the purposes of today's talk, for gaming and for esports, the first 3 are particularly relevant, and I'd like to run us through some examples. So the first one, trademark, is very important in protecting game titles and branding. Logos, I've put some samples here. The top 3, Liquid, Fnatic, FaZe Clan. These are all very huge esports organizations. They have teams under them. They go compete in world championships and tons of prize monies. The middle one, Riot Games, Electronic Arts, EA, Activision, Blizzard, I mentioned just now being acquired by Microsoft. These are game publishers. They're game developers. They are the ones who come up with new games all the time. And the last one, ESL, is the biggest esports company, the oldest as well. And there you see their logo being rebranded pre-2019, refreshed from the right-hand side from since 2019 onwards. So even here, esports organizations and publishers have their own branding, which they use trademark to help to protect. A couple more examples. Back then, a couple of years ago, we used to have this pretty big team, EVOS. They teamed up with Visa credit card. Over in the US, we've got some local leagues teaming up with 7-Eleven. And despite us speaking about electronic sports, esports, here we see FaZe Clan, one of the esports organizations, teaming up with NFL, which is a traditional sports, huge in the US as well. So there we see a fusion or a collaboration between the electronic sports and the traditional sports. We even have Riot Games collaborating with Louis Vuitton. On the left-hand side is the range of clothes that they've come up in line with League of Legends game. And on the right-hand side, that casing over there by LV for the trophy of the world champs of LOL, League of Legends. Here, I like to go into the streaming side of things. And despite the fact that there may be this conception that I need to be a professional player, a professional gamer, compete in this level, win the prize monies. But in fact, a lot of people who are spending time on Twitch, the streamers over there are earning good money on Twitch as well. And here is the biggest example. This is Tyler Blevins, more popularly known as Ninja. And this is his signing with Adidas, again, a traditional sports brand we all know. And this was Adidas' first foray into signing a professional gamer under their belt. And not only that, Ninja was so huge, Red Bull actually came up with a Red Bull can with his face on it over there in the photo. And so much, Ninja has also used the trademark intellectual property protection to create his own logo. The left one is his old logo, and recently he's launched the one on the right, which is his new logo. Now, the second type of protection is copyright, which governs usually things like artistic designs or musical writings. And in the gaming perspective, copyright is used to protect concepts, characters, and storylines. And here I've put a couple of characters which may be familiar to some of you. Far left, Chun-Li from Mortal Kombat. Second one, Kratos from God of War. Pikachu, the most famous Pokemon of all. And on the far right is in fact what's supposed to be probably the most famous video game character of all time, Mario, who has 200 video game titles under his name. He's got a theme park under his name. He's been around since the 1980s, extremely popular, and copyright is one way to protect Mario. The third protection is patent, which basically seeks to protect technological innovations in gaming. And I've pulled out, I think, two examples. So one is, in the old days, it takes a while when you open a game, it takes a while for the game to load. Not like today where we're very spoiled. If things take more than 10 seconds to load, we get extremely impatient and annoyed. But in those days, it takes a while. You open the game, you press the on button, it takes a while for the game to load. And people were fine with it back then. But Namco wanted to do something different. And what they did was they came up with this system where while you're waiting for the main game to load, they had mini games that you could play during the loading time. And here is a snapshot of the application papers that they had put in the US Patent and Trademark Office. And there you see what's running the main game, the auxiliary game, which is the mini game, will be running. And even in the application, they did put in drawings and sketches of the mini games as well. On top of that, and the more modern side of things, Warner Brothers in the Middle-earth game, Mordor Middle-earth game, they created a system called Nemesis system. And the definition in the patent application papers was Nemesis characters, Nemesis forts, social vendettas, and followers in computer games. So in simple words, what this actually meant is that there's usually a main character in the game, which is played by us, the gamer. We control the character, determine where they walk, what they do, and build their character as we walk through the game. But this Nemesis system created a system where all the, what we call NPCs, non-player characters, all the other characters had a hierarchy or had a system on their own. They were each individual in terms of their looks. They each had different kinds of relationships, different traits, different fighting styles. They will be placed in different locations of the game. And their development of these subsidiary characters highly depended on how the gamer was playing throughout the game. So usually in a normal game setting, all these non-player characters, NPCs, they're all fixed. They have a very set storyline where they're supposed to appear, how they're going to react. But in this Nemesis system, the subsidiary characters were growing and reacting depending on how the gamer was playing the game. And this was one system that has been put in for patent. I think Warner Brothers had a tough time trying to get application, but it is in place now. They have a protection over it. And now I'll go to the second limb of IP protection, which is licensing. Now, this may be familiar to some of you. When we purchase games, walk into a game shop, we purchase a game and it'll come in a box like this. The one on the left for PlayStation and the one on the right for Nintendo Switch. I've put the one in the middle, FIFA, just a little nostalgic. Back in the day when I first started playing PC games, this is how it looks like. We had to buy a box, bring home and put the CD in the computer back then. And CD was already an upgrade from the old floppy disk. And these were the box games that we would take back. And nowadays, my colleague Jasmine plays on Steam, where she streams Hogwarts Legacy straight from the internet. No more box games anymore. But how does all of this work? How do we pay the money? How do we get the game from the owner? What rights do we have over these games? And here's how it works. So I've come up with a little bit of a chart. I hope you can follow me through it. So we are on the bottom line. Each of us are individual gamers, and we may buy these games, whether through Steam, buy it online, or we buy the box from the game store, Sony, PlayStation, Microsoft Xbox. And that is one contractual relationship, because we go to the shop, we pay money, and in exchange, we get that box, and we get to take it home and we get to play with it. So that's one contractual relationship. But when we go home and we open the box and we start playing, we are in fact entering into another contractual relationship with the game developer, who is the original company which produced the game back then. And I don't know how many of you actually noticed, but when you purchase a game online or when you buy the box, there is actually an end user license agreement that we are actually agreeing to. And this forms that relationship, the one on the red color with the gamer, us, and the game developer. On top of that, there is one more relationship, which is when the game developer sometimes distributes to the individual stores. That is the third contractual relationship. So here's just a general overview of the different contractual relationships, all bound together by the system of licensing. Just want to share this local case in regards to licensing. It's from the Malaysian courts, Public Prosecutor and Choo on. It's a 2017 case. And I'll read briefly the facts. So the police raided a local internet cafe, NV, and this was managed by the respondent. And when the police raided the 3 computers in the cafe using the same CD for installation for Warcraft 3, 2 types of Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos and Frozen Throne. And subsequently, the owners of the internet cafe were charged in the Sessions Court for an offense under our local Copyright Act. And in the initial stage in the Sessions Court, the respondent was acquitted, discharged by the trial court, and this was up in appeal going up to the High Court. And the police claimed that the respondent had used pirated copies of those 2 games, but the respondents, being the owners of the shop, were able to show that they had bought 2 original CDs, I'm guessing in that box that we saw just now, 2 original CDs from a company, a local company, supported by the end user agreement, in which the company had agreed to supply copies and granted license and rights to use the PC games in the cafe. Now, just a side note, the respondent's brother was actually illiterate, and he did sign the agreement without understanding its contents. But the respondents did testify that they were actually informed by the agent that there was no renewal that was necessary for the game software. Now, remember, this is on appeal, so the High Court held that a definition of reproduction is the act of copying the original work. But here, it didn't really fit into that definition, because all 33 computers in the cafe had used the same CD from that same box, and they were not, in fact, being copied from one PC to another. The second point, by entering into the end user license agreement, it is true that the cafe had gained lawful access to the PC games as lawfully granted by the owner. And through the agreement, the company had agreed to supply copies and licenses to use the software, subject to terms and conditions in that agreement. Now, the court also held that it was ridiculous to say that the cafe owners had infringed copyright, because in the agreement, it was clearly stated there are 33 computers involved. And so the court accepted that there was a defense of good faith, notwithstanding that the respondent's brother was illiterate. And the last point over there, the respondent had proved that he had acted in good faith and that there was no reasonable grounds to assume that he was trying to infringe copyright of the original owners or the original publishers. This is one local case that dealt with a internet cafe esports scenario, but clearly related to the licensing aspect that we were just talking about. Now, I'll jump into the third and fourth point, which is the esports regulations and more on the governance side of structure so that we can understand how the esports system works actually. So here's a traditional sporting structure. We'll start at the bottom. We all might join clubs, district, and there should be a state there. And then there's national, regional, which could be Asia, and then international. So as you see, the way the pyramid goes, there's usually many clubs, and then it gets higher in the international. There's usually only one governing body at the top. And our usual traditional sports development model here in Malaysia, at the bottom of the pyramid, there's a talent identification program where there's grassroots development. We see schools coming up with clinics for kids to play football or badminton. And as they start to represent school, they will then maybe represent district, they will represent state, then eventually they will try to make it to Team Malaysia and be able to represent our country, whether at the Asia level, Southeast Asia, or even international level. So it's a very traditional model that we all know, we're all familiar. Our kids are probably involved in this as well. And the good news is, recently, the Sports Development Act was recently amended. So the Sports Development Act is the main legislation in Malaysia that governs the sports industry. And at the back in the first schedule, there is a list of activities that are defined as sports. And previously, the old schedule only had about 30 over sports in there, but very recently, it was amended to over 100 over sports. And there we see at number 84 lies Sukan Electronic. This signifies that Sukan Electronic is officially recognized as a sport in Malaysia here. And we'll look at the different governing bodies. So we have a governing body, Malaysia Esports Federation, MESF. They are the governing body for all electronic sports in Malaysia. And part and parcel of their role is to support and grow our esports ecosystem here in Malaysia with the mission of esports for all. So we have a governing body here in Malaysia, but on the international side, things are not as clear. There is a body called IESF, the International Esports Federation, and it's very well structured. They look just like a normal international federation, which you would see maybe for badminton or volleyball or basketball. Very professionally done, proper structure. They have subcommittees. In fact, one of their subcommittees is the Athletes Commission, of which our local gamer, Tiffany, sits as the chair of their Athletes Commission. And they even have world championships, etc. However, they are not the governing body for esports in the world. Unlike for football, we all know that the governing body on the global stage is FIFA. For badminton, we all know is the World Badminton Federation. But IESF not recognized as the governing body. And that's because of late, there's another body that's come up called Global Esports Federation. So this is based in Singapore. The earlier one was based in South Korea. And GEF has also come up to say that we are a non-profit organization. We're here to promote the credibility, legitimacy, and prestige of esports. We want to bring everyone together. We want to convene everyone. They have their own set of tournaments as well. They have a full proper structure as well. Many members from the international base are under them as well. But already here we see two bodies almost fighting for the role of who's going to be the main governing body for esports. Thankfully, on the Asian level, it's a little clearer, where we have the Asian Electronic Sports Federation, AESF, and they are the sole competent authority for electronic sports in the Asian region, and they have been able to get the necessary recognition from the Olympic Council of Asia. Now we'll go back to this relationship and just to address our mind of why it is going to be difficult to have a sole governing body for esports. Because this relationship, as we spoke about just now, is going to exist for each and every game. So for example, if I play FIFA, I'm going to have this one relationship with the game developer and with the person that I bought the game from. If I play Hogwarts Legacy, I'm going to have another relationship, etc. This is a very big contrast from football and badminton. So right now, if Jasmine and I go to the futsal court outside or the badminton court and we want to play badminton, we don't need to ask anybody's permission because badminton and football doesn't belong to anyone. But in contrast, if you recall, we were discussing about intellectual property protection just now. The game developer owns all the intellectual property for that particular game. So we're going to have one game developer in charge of each and every game. And again, the contrast to no one actually owning football and badminton. And my last talk point is on player contracts and rights. Recently, our Team Malaysia did fairly well in the SEA Games 2023. Here's the team over there. And we in fact brought back 2 silver medals and 2 bronze medals. Did pretty well. And the biggest news that's come up of late is that the Asian Games 2026 esports will in fact be a medal event. So for the last couple of editions, esports at the Asian level has been an exhibition sport. There's no medal tally that's accounted for over there. But in the very near future, we're going to see it be a medal event at such a major multi-sport event. And here are some of the legal issues that we see in esports. And in fact, they are not very far different from what an athlete goes through in a normal traditional sports settings. The first one being contracts, issues of ensuring that there are salaries, benefits, and clear obligations are listed in the contracts. Just some of the athletes that we encounter in the traditional sports sector. We also have esports players who don't know much about the contract that they're entering into, don't get proper legal advice before they enter into the contracts, sometimes don't even read. And unfortunately, by the time they seek legal advice, it's way further down the road and it's reached a point where it's a damage control. So it's very important to get proper legal advice before entering contracts. And a couple of years ago, we were having issues where players who signed up to compete in local tournaments and they win the tournament, but they don't get their prize money because the tournament organizer does not pay out the prize money. So those are some of the issues there from the contractual side. Governance, I spoke about just now, that there is no single regulatory body on the international level. Issues of doping, we always read about doping affecting weightlifting athletes and runners. It happens and it exists in the esports sector as well. On top of that, esports has e-doping, which is where the programs and softwares are manipulated to give one player an advantage over the other opponent. And this, in fact, was one of the issues that came up in the recent SEA Games. I think it was the finals, and one side was alleging that the other side had manipulated the system for some form of advantage in the finals. And in terms of streaming rights, we spoke about quite a fair bit earlier, streaming rights. Over in the US, copyright infringement has this thing called DMCA takedown notice. So if I'm a copyright owner of a particular piece of work and I think that someone has infringed my copyright, I can submit a complaint to the authority and the authority will help to issue this DMCA takedown notice. And if the infringer does not take the necessary steps to remove the infringing item, it could be a situation where the authority takes it down or suspends your system, etc. So this is a situation where the authority is coming in and playing a very proactive role in assisting in the copyright infringement on the digital side of things, on the internet, in the worldwide, and not so much on the physical side of things. IP we spoke about at length just now, and on top of all of this, there is sometimes dispute resolution. Dispute may arise between player, sponsor with their teams, sometimes between teams, etc. And of course, with the amount of money flowing through, there is also tax to be considered. Now, going back to the contract side of things, and this is something we speak about a lot in our just sports contracts, is the importance of having a morality clause and the player being that image, the front for the team, and just as a person of standing maybe in the society, because now kids look up a lot to these streamers and these players, that they should carry themselves in a certain way and uphold themselves to a certain standard. So morality clause will ensure that these players adhere to a certain, code of conduct or a corporate image. So to end, I have 3 points in conclusion. First one, I've just taken this SWOT analysis from IESF's website. And here they've listed down the strengths of esports on the top left. So there's massive audience, massive viewership, low barriers to entry. Any one of us can get involved in esports and gaming, clearly has the attention of major sponsors. it has its set of weaknesses as well. There's limited infrastructure, lack of professionalism. We've seen the governance issues. There's lack of education, and parents are often very concerned about their kids spending too much screen time, the number of hours that's spent. But on the left, if well developed, this could give rise to opportunities in terms of professionalism, proper structure, pay, making careers out of being in the esports industry. But there are sets of threats as well. There are segmented fan base. Some fans are die-hard League of Legends, World of Warcraft. Some only want to deal with Mobile Legends or PUBG. There are game disruptions. And of course, spending too much time on one thing is never good, on whether this can affect health in general. So that's the first point. The second point is, with the advent of 5G, the future looks to be cloud gaming. So if you recall, just now we spoke about three main platforms: PC, console, and mobile. But cloud gaming looks to be the next up-and-coming platform. So you see the top half is our traditional setting where you need a PC, you need a phone, or you need a console, and you play the game on it. And the equipment requires the necessary hardware to store the game, have the processor, render the graphics, etc. And it's connected to the internet, to the main server, wherever the server field is. But with cloud gaming, what's going to potentially happen is where the server is, the game storage, the process input, the rendering of the graphics will all be at the server on the right side. And you see the internet, which has to be high level of internet, constant internet connection with low latency, will be transmitted to just a simple device in our hand. And this will reduce the necessary tech specs, the specifications for the device that we hold in our hand. And then that again will be streamed back when we put in the control and buttons back to the server. So everything operates on a cloud basis, reducing the need for the gamer to handle the hardware side of things and have to worry about constantly, oh, I need to upgrade my specs to fit the specs of the game. So this looks to be the future. There's lots of talk about where this is going to go. But in my view, I don't think it's going to replace the PC, the console, or the mobile anytime soon yet. But definitely, this looks to be coming up. And the last point, coming back to local shores, our Youth and Sports Minister has announced that KBS will be working together with the Education Ministry about the introduction of esports in schools. I think YB Hannah is very aware of the stigma attached to esports, the concern of parents, and how this can be brought into schools in the right way. And I think this is, if done right, done well, is definitely going to improve our grassroots developments of esports here in Malaysia. And that's all from me. I will stop sharing my screen and pass the floor back to Jasmine. Thank you.
Thank you, Lesley, for your insights. So I would just like to let participants know that it's time for the Q&A. And if you have any questions, you can leave it in the Q&A box, which should be at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so it seems that we have no questions.
I hope that means that everyone found it insightful. But if at any time you have any questions, whether it's about gaming or esports, please feel free to reach out to us.
Also, I would like to add on to that. I would like just to remind participants that this talk does not constitute legal advice. In the event you require us for any specific legal advice, please contact us for a complimentary legal consultation. I'll give the details at the end of this talk. And I would also like to make a few announcements. And that is that we have our next talk, which you can join on the 9th of August, 2023. And it's about defamation allegations in strata management. And it will be done by Mr. Edwin Rajla. He's an associate with our firm. Or you can just scan the QR code here on the screen. And secondly, I would really appreciate if you could fill in our feedback form and tell us what you thought about our talk. And the link to the form will be posted in the chat. And of course, last but not least, please follow us on our social media. We have YouTube, Twitter, as you can see on the screen here. And that's it. So this is the QR code for the complimentary consultation if you need it. And if you'd like to speak with our lawyers, we offer a free complimentary consultation for 30 minutes. The guests, thank you so much for joining us today. And Lesley, we really appreciate your insight. Thank you very much for giving such a detailed talk. And I hope that you all found today's session informative and useful.
Thank you everyone for your time.